Hello everyone. Today I'm writing this personal reflection on the Trinity doctrine. So, what is the Trinity? The Trinity is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Father being Yahweh, God, who encompasses all of the who is all around us, even in the air we breathe. The Son, Jesus, who came for us and who became truly human and died for us on the cross, so that our sins, in particular the original sins, may be forgiven, and the Holy Spirit, which on the day of Pentecost came down and filled us all with with gifts such as the ability to speak in tongues and the fruits of generosity and kindness. Now, throughout the faith, there's always been the doctrine of the one God. We worship one God, and any other gods are considered false idols or false gods. Yet in throughout the scriptures, it is referenced God as being free free interconnected aspects of God. So there's been massive confusion within theology as to how we can worship one God, when he's in three beings. Many theologians have come up with different conclusions as to what it could mean. It could mean that God is in itself three distinct gods, but 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 doctrines, but many doctrines and the scriptures disagree with that sort of doctrine. In fact, in the text, God we worship, Beth helps to helps to examine the doctrine of the Father, Son, and Spirit, which in which she states that that God is of one being, yet can exist in three separate. It can exist in three separate aspects of God, as outlined in Deuteronomy 6:4-9. Therefore, indicating that God is of three aspects, but they are all interrelated with God, which are all equal in their own understanding and uniqueness. So the idea that God is of one is reinforced in the Nicene Creed, which is reinforced in the Nicene Creed that that God is of one being, as outlined in the book The Spirit and Salvation. Kurt Cameron outlines that the practical need to reinforce this as God being one is important, and is included throughout the traditions and eulogies of the Catholic, Anglican, and Pentecostal churches. It is important to note that these doctrines support the idea that God is that each of these aspects of God all play an equal role, and not one of them is any less further than the other. Yet it is hard. It's often caused a lot of confusion. It's often caused a lot of historical confusion, as there's been many doctrines such as adoptionism, which adopts the idea that God is that each of these beings are not as equal to each other. For example, Jesus, because he died on the cross for us and became truly human, he is less powerful than the Holy Spirit and God, for he was human, and then on his death and resurrection, he ascended into heaven. So therefore, it is believed, how can they be equal if Jesus became truly human? Nonetheless, in the text, The Doctrine of Trinity, Donald MacLeod outlines 3 points to consider when taking into consideration the Trinity. The Trinity isn't the unity of God, which is that God is united in these three beings and not one of them is higher than the other. The deity of God, that it's essential that while these three aspects of God exist, that God is of one being. He does not exist as three, but as one. and the personal connection of the Holy Spirit, to establish that the Holy Spirit lives and dwells within all of us, and that it is a part of God's, an aspect of God, and that it's not our place to question our personal connection with Him. In Yeah, and also we need to examine that each of the triune represents a different connection to God. For example, the God is all around us. So the Father is our personal connection to God and the universe, that He's even in the air we breathe. Whereas Jesus is the human aspect of God, that He came to earth, became truly human, and died and sacrificed Himself on the cross so that we may be saved. And also the Holy Spirit dwells within us, so it creates that spiritual connection. So all of these play the aspect of the physical, the metaphysical, and the spiritual connection with God. In the text, the Trinity, Cole Rayner outlines how insurmountable the Trinity is. To God's love and his path of salvation. Compared to in the text, the Trinity, in the text, it outlines how the Trinity creates a doctrine of prayer and worship that it's nothing that the churches have tried to outline the doctrine as a way of prayer and speaking, as a way of prayer speaking in order to form that personal connection with God. And that it's become a church tradition to represent God as one being. So I reckon this would help my faith my own thinking, yet it was left me confused on certain aspects. I do believe that this has helped me to understand the metaphysical, the physical, and the spiritual connection God has with each individual person on earth, as we are all created in God's image, perfect in our own understanding in our own ways. And how this has impacted my ministry is that it's highlighted my understanding of God's love and purpose for each of us. And it even reflects aspects that I never even considered. For example, the triuninism actually incorporates Mary's role into it, as when Jesus died, she went to the tomb and ascended to heaven, indicating that God's relationship with human beings isn't, as indicated in the text, the Trinity, which in the text, the Trinity. So therefore, it indicates that God's love is far beyond. It's in the dictionary of the Bible, in which David Freeman outlines Mary's connection. So it indicates that our connection with God is far succeeds that of just God exists all around us. We all interconnect with God's love and relationship in individual ways, both spiritually, physically, and in faith, in the sight we can't, in the love we can't see, as His love is internal, and yet while we can't feel it, we have faith that we can rely on God's will and love to guide us through the difficult aspects of our lives. So that is why I think His ministry will help me. Why I reckon the Trinity helps me in my understanding of worship and of my ministry, because it will help me to counsel people into understanding how God's plan for us interlines with His love, and how the Holy Spirit, how we can use our gifts of the Holy Spirit and model Jesus's perfect human love in our own unique and individual ways as a reflectant. And furthermore, this has had a major impact on my own thinking. While I cannot comprehend or understand God's perfect will and time and wisdom, I can gain some sort of an understanding. While maybe confusing, it is important to note that this the doctrine of the Trinity helps to outline God's will on earth. Thank you.